Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are taking a deep dive into what is, without a doubt, the most explosively literal, thrilling, and heavily armed piece of classical music ever written. Of course, we're talking about Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture.
Right off the bat, you've got to wonder, why does a piece of music about a Russian victory over France require actual live artillery? And honestly, why does it absolutely dominate American 4th of July celebrations? It's a bit weird, right? Well, what's really fascinating here is the profound irony of the Overture's legacy. We're going to unpack exactly how a very specific, historically grounded Russian moment transformed into a universally recognized global symbol of pure festive spectacle.
The ultimate musical spectacle.
Take a look at this number, 6. That stands for 6 weeks. Tchaikovsky wrote this sweeping 15-minute concert overture in E-flat major in just 6 weeks back in 1880. Honestly, it's an astonishing feat of rapid composition, especially when you consider the sheer scale, the intricate layers, and the massive complexity of the orchestration required to pull the whole shebang off.
To understand how he managed to do this so fast, we really have to look at what this piece actually is. It's a textbook illustration of program music, which is music designed to narrate a specific story, depict a scene, or represent a historical event directly through sound. So, the key takeaway here is that this overture isn't just a random collection of pretty melodies. Not at all. It is a highly structured, literal musical recounting of a very real, incredibly dramatic historical event.
Section 2. History behind the notes.
To really set the stage, let's walk through this timeline. Back in 1812, we have Napoleon's catastrophic invasion and the intense Russian defense, which culminated in massive events like the famous Battle of Borodino. But notice the massive 70-year gap here. Tchaikovsky didn't compose this in the heat of battle. He actually wrote it in 1880, and it officially premiered in 1882. It was commissioned specifically for the consecration of the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow, a cathedral that was built specifically as a monument to that 1812 victory.
And to put the stakes of that history into perspective, 600,000. That was the staggering scale of the French Grande Armée that marched into Russia. I mean, that's massive. And their catastrophic losses, which were brought on by relentless Russian scorched earth tactics and a notoriously unforgiving winter, well, that became the narrative fuel for the entire piece. Tchaikovsky essentially took that immense human drama and translated it directly into the language of music.
Section 3. The soundtrack of battle.
So how exactly do you turn a freezing historical timeline into visceral music? Well, Tchaikovsky literally treats his melodies as colliding armies on the battlefield of the orchestral score. For the French invasion, he uses the French anthem La Marseillaise to represent aggression and hubris. And to counter it, he uses Russian sacred hymns and folk melodies to represent the resilience, the faith, and the spiritual superiority of the Russian defense. When you listen to the piece, you can actually hear these two themes physically fighting each other for dominance. It's brilliant.
This whole 15-minute overture unfolds in a dramatic arc that perfectly mirrors the emotional and historical journey of that invasion. Step 1 is the introduction, representing sorrow. Step 2 is the development, representing the chaotic battle itself. And Step 3 is the climax, representing ultimate victory. Let's break these down.
Step 1 kicks off with this incredibly moving theme called God Preserve Thy People. It's a somber Russian Orthodox hymn played primarily by the deeper, richer string instruments, the cellos and violas. When you hear this, it immediately evokes the prayer, the deep sorrow, and the distress of the Russian people as they face this looming invasion. It really sets a beautifully solemn, anxious tone right before the storm breaks.
Then, the storm breaks. We enter the turbulent clash, which is the development section. Here, you get these highly energetic strings and woodwinds introducing a creeping, rapid tension. The rhythmic drive aggressively pushes the French theme, the Marseillaise, right up against those tense Russian motifs. It's absolutely full of dynamic extremes and chaotic musical polyphony that viscerally mimics the fog and panic of war.
And then, we finally hit the climax. The French theme is defeated and completely overtaken, giving way to the triumphant, surging return of the Russian motifs. But Tchaikovsky doesn't just stop there. He pushes the orchestra to its absolute physical limit. We're talking ringing church chimes, massive brass fanfares, the exultant melody of God Save the Tsar, and yes, actual live cannon volleys written directly into the sheet music. It's literally explosive. Sweeping strings combined with live artillery deliver this overwhelming physical wave of joy, relief, and patriotic elation.
Section 4. An ironic global legacy.
After a massive, ear-ringing climax like that, we have to ask, is this overture a profound romantic statement on collective memory, or is it just a bombastic, vulgar spectacle? Well, here is the ultimate irony. Check out this quote from Tchaikovsky himself. He described it as being, quote, without warmth, lacking deep artistic warmth. Can you believe that? Despite its masterful orchestration and the huge global success it achieved instantly, Tchaikovsky completely dismissed his own commissioned work. He basically thought it was just loud, flashy, and devoid of true artistic merit.
And yet, the piece successfully transitioned from a specific Russian triumph to an unstoppable global spectacle. Going back to our opening question, this overture's ability to stir up those primal feelings of pride, release, and pure joy made it a beloved staple all over the world. That's exactly why you hear it blasting over U.S. Independence Day fireworks. Its emotional catharsis, that incredible journey from sorrow through chaos into explosive victory, completely transcends its original Russian context.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Does the true meaning of art belong to the creator who dismissed it? Or does it belong to the audience that feels its thrilling emotional catharsis? The 1812 Overture is a bombastic masterpiece, and honestly, whether Tchaikovsky liked it or not, its joyful, explosive, and enduring power is absolutely undeniable. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and never stop exploring the incredible, and sometimes wonderfully ironic, stories behind the art we love.